Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. It's Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing, the other white meat. Back here in our non-in-person format here for the
Ooh,
first
I could go
time.
for a man weekend. I'll tell you that. I was thinking that already
Yeah,
the last 2 days.
it's been a long 5 days since the last time we were together. Um,
uh,
but yeah, we are back and in our usual format here. Um, Before we get into our topic, what have you guys been doing this week?
oh man, oh man, I can go first.
Sure,
What about,
go
I
for it.
feel like I've said this on a few previous podcasts, but I feel like I have just spread myself into like 10 directions right now, and like I watched like the intro 20 minutes of a Bond movie this week. I built in my garage for a few hours. I started the new video game that some of us are playing through here for the podcast. Um, Man, what else? I don't know. I just feel like I've been reading like two or three books a little bit here and there. It's just like maximum effort in maximum directions and not full effort in any one direction, unfortunately. But it's been enjoyable, I will say. So that's been good. But yeah, I guess if I point out anything here, I mentioned this on our group chat, but I picked up a couple books at Barnes and Noble this past week just because I feel like I needed a couple new ones for my nightstand. And I was looking for something in kind of like the horror suspense type genre. And I found a book called Fantastic Land, which I shared the back cover picture of with all of you. But it's essentially this amusement park in Florida that was a rival to Disney and Universal. A hurricane hits Florida and they're basically cut off from the rest of civilization for a pretty extended period of time due to some flooding and some outages and whatnot. And this park had adequate supplies because the founder of the park was paranoid about making sure his people would always be safe. So they had like underground tunnels and like enough food to last for a month. And they had like every
Wow.
possible safety precaution you could take. Despite that, somehow chaos happens at the park once they're all cut off from the world and like the employees like split off into like six tribes and it's like warfare with like hanging
What?
bodies and people are dead and
Hold
it
on,
sounds
is this nonfiction? What was
you
this?
haven't heard
I
about
mean, it
this
is
place?
Florida.
No, I
No,
don't
no,
think
yeah,
I'm
this
sure I
is
have.
it's fiction and it's told through a series of interviews. Each chapter is like 33 chapters, and each one is an interview with a different person from the park, either somebody who is an employee there, like the carnival game, or like the groundskeeper, or whatever. And then there's also interviews from like the CEO and like other people like that, and the news reporters, and like so it's all these different viewpoints about what happened. And I'm only like three chapters in so far, but it's told through those interviews, but they say in the little prologue that like they streamline the interviews so you as the reader don't have to like hear all the boring questions that they asked the person. So it's just like one
Hmm.
person's telling
Okay.
their first person point of view for like 6 or 7 pages, and then you go to the next person. But it's interesting formatting, so I'm intrigued by it so far. So that's Fantastic Land. I'll have to do a review when I'm done with it all.
Hmm. Yeah, it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
How about you,
Uh,
Justin?
since getting back from our weekend of madness and debauchery, uh, I swear things weren't this weird at work when I left. But it's like this past week was just a whole bunch of stuff that I'm not at liberty to talk about. But it all kind of happened not exactly all at once, but in sequence, and it made the week feel like three times as long as it should have been.
Mm.
So ostensibly, I'm still playing through Baldur's Gate 3, but at the end of most of these days that I've gotten back, I've gotten home and I haven't really felt like doing much of anything. So that said, I have been doing a lot of reading because that's fairly, it's something that doesn't require a whole lot of interaction. I can just kind of go at my own pace. And being that Halloween is drawing close, and because one of the books I brought with me on the trip to read on the plane was horror themed, I've really gotten into the kind of the feeling of spooky season a bit early. So I've been kind of just going through my backlog of horror novels and things and just finally whittling that down a bit. So that's been fun. I also am playing the unnamed game that we're going to be covering in the near future.
Hmm.
Uh, that's I look forward to that episode because it's something that I had not even heard of until I think it was you, Cody, mentioned it or brought it up or posted an article to it.
Yeah,
And
I don't remember where I saw it either. Some random
yeah,
article or something.
huh. But yeah, that has been a very interesting diversion. And aside from a few sections, it doesn't require a whole lot of like concentration. It's more something that's also kind of slower paced. So that's been a nice diversion because if I tried to do the part in Baldur's Gate where I am right now, I'm sure I would just completely screw it up. Uh, but so yeah, it's been a lot of reading for me in the past week or so. But it's not a bad thing. Um, what about you, Brett?
I think it was like 2 weeks ago when I mentioned we've been watching, my wife and I we're watching a reality game show on Peacock called Traders, The Traders. Um, well, they actually have two other seasons. I haven't figured out if they're like sequel seasons or if they were like filmed simultaneously. I haven't figured that, but there's like three. There's the original, there's an Australia version, and there's a UK version. And we over the last week binged through the Australia version of that show. And I it probably was even better than the first season that we watched. So it was pretty enjoyable again. It as I had mentioned it's a lot it's a reality game, but it's like it's not nearly as much like drama and stuff as it is like some of those shows boil down to. Um it's very much like cat and mouse, like these people just trying to figure out what's going on and like find clues wherever they can and like pointing fingers at each other, but it never like breaks out into like just arguing, which is a great thing. It's actually been pretty fun. I think we both enjoy that quite a bit. um so I would double down and continue to recommend that series if anybody enjoys that kind of stuff. Uh,
That's fun.
I've also, since coming back from last weekend, I've been playing Starfield. I've got like 3 hours in at this point, I think, something like that, 3.5 hours in. And I've been enjoying it. It's been pretty good. It's not flawless by any means. It's a stereotypical Bethesda game, which means there has some weird things in it, but it's fun. Yeah, I enjoy the combat has been fun. I today I found a legendary sword, and so I started just going around with a melee instead of the laser gun that I had, and I was enjoying that quite a bit. It's like sword fights in space. Um, and oh, that's so there's these, it's a typical game in that you can just basically like loot everything. Like there's just random things like forks and knives and a sandwich and like anything in the world that's like laying around like in these areas, you can just take it. And so um there's these little things called uh Egbert. It's titled Egbert, and it's labeled as a personal assistant, like a personal desk assistant. So I imagine it's like something like if you had an Alexa like box on your desk or something. But my kids think it's like really cute because it's like egg shaped and like, so I've made it my personal mission just to like grab every single one of those that I see and just stow them away on my ship somewhere. I've got like six at
Nice.
this point. So there's like just little fun things you can just kind of like make your own little fun out of it here, and stuff. But um yeah, I think it's been pretty good. The biggest disappointment I have so far is that you don't actually fly through space necessarily, unless you're in a ship to ship combat. Then you're actually like maneuvering about around a bit, but like you cannot just fly from one planet to another. You have to fast travel everywhere you go.
Oh,
um
Uh,
so from that standpoint, it's definitely not what I expected and hoped for. But so far, that's not enough for me to like speak badly of the game. It's just a disappointment, But anyways, like I say, I haven't had a lot of time in it, but I've been enjoying it. So
I saw some article about some lady who flew to Pluto. But I don't know
Mhm.
how she would have done that if she can't fly. Then you're saying,
Well, you can fast travel, like you can fast travel to a solar system, and
okay,
then once you're there, you can fast travel to any specific planet
okay,
Mhm.
or moon or space station within that system. But you can't just like enter the system and then just navigate to a planet.
I see.
Huh.
You
That
know,
seems like it
so
would really cut down on the sense of discovery and exploration.
yes, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I definitely was expecting something like No Man's Sky, where you'd literally just fly anywhere you want to, like go, So uh I don't I doubt at this point that they would like revert that, because that seems like that'd be a lot of work. But I think it just is what it is. But yeah.
Hmm.
Anyways, yeah, so that gets us let's get into our main topic here tonight. I actually did not introduce ourselves. So I am Brett. I am hosting tonight uh, for this topic here, which is the Wheel of Time season 2. And I have with me here Justin and Cody. You may have, if you're a long-ish time listener, you probably recognize their voices anyways. But that's who we have here tonight. And
Hello, everyone.
that was obviously Cody.
Stop, Justin.
You know.
Hey, I've been debuting for Spamalot, or I'm not debuting, auditioning for Spamalot on
Nice.
campus. So
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, it has been a quite a wait for this series. I mean, it's been so long. Do we want to just real quickly just go over like our experience with the series or anything? For anybody who hasn't been listening since episode 9 of our podcast, which is how long it's been.
wow.
Yeah, we could
not
do
a
like some
terrible
kind
idea.
of little intro.
I mean,
Okay.
even just to say like I'll just go ahead and start. So like
Yeah.
I've been a not, I wouldn't even say long time. I've been a fairly recent time fan of the series. Probably about like 7 or 8 years, something like that. But in that time, I have listened completely through the audiobook 3 times. The audiobook series, which is 14
Wow.
books. And I
These are
kinda
not
keep
tiny
up-
books either.
right. That's a good note.
Re-mention that again as well.
I forget what we had the number the first time. It
Yeah.
was like tens of thousands of pages or something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and I keep up on the news. I have a little bits of collectible things at the home here, and yeah, it is probably my favorite IP across most all media types. So and enough, one of you guys.
For me, my first exposure to the series was season 1 of the show. I went in knowing it was a fantasy show, and that was pretty much it, or fantasy series, and nothing else about it really.
I love that though.
I mean,
Hmm.
yeah, it's
Like-
go on.
No, I was just gonna say, like, that's again, I've said this before, but those are like the perspectives we need on some of these topics, I feel like.
Yeah, and that said, I remember really quite liking season 1. I had questions, but overall I felt like it did a good job of at least introducing the setting, the premise, the characters, and making me want to learn more about it. That said, I have picked up the first book not that long ago.
Mhm.
I have not read it yet because, well, my backlog of books to read is a mountain pretty much.
Mm.
And as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I'm really kind of feeling like more of a horror type of entertainment right now. So I'll get to it at some point, especially after having watched the first episode of season 2 that we're going to talk about today. That really has made me want to. It stoked that fire in the back of my head, saying that, oh yeah, this actually is interesting and something I do want to learn more about. So maybe in the near future, I'll take a break from all the Clive Barker and whatever else I happen to be reading, and actually give the first book a try rather.
Yeah, I think I probably said when we were looking at that first season as well. Like, this is, I actually just pulled up the dates of when these were published here. So the first one came out in 90, and I probably wasn't quite at that time, but maybe like 92-ish, I would say I got into these. I think our friend Chad and I were on like a big fantasy kick for a little while with some of the David Eddings books, and then we got from that to this essentially. So But it took me until a long time to get through this. Not until actually I read the first, I don't know what I said, 6 books like 3 times, and then never got past that. But then Brett gave me the audio files, and that's how I finally got through them. Was also driving and listening to them on my commute, and so it's definitely something like, you might hear me talk about tonight, like watching that first episode. Like I was almost more curious my wife's reaction for some things in it because she has never been exposed to this other than the first season as well. So I was like, well, what did you think of this? Did this work for you? Because as I said, there'll be some comments here coming up, but like things that are going to be easier for someone who has experienced this stuff to take when they go through it versus somebody who is new to this. So, but yeah, I had no idea Brett was a huge fan of this until we got into the first season. So older than Brett, but he's a bigger fan of it than I am. I bow down my fandom to him. So
yeah, I have been binging it quite a bit. So as I said here, we're here to talk about season 2, specifically the first episode. At the time of recording this, there are 4 episodes available. But it just in terms of giving a first kind of feel perspective of it, and also not putting too much of a workload on ourselves for this week's work here. We're just covering the first episode of this second season, and I guess we kind of, well, I guess we didn't really talk about this much, but so I mean, the fact that it's been like almost 2 full years since season 1 came out, and as I said, that was like episode 9 of our podcast when we reviewed that, and now we're on 84.
Wow.
So some extra little perspective there. But I don't have you guys had any like thoughts or feelings that have changed since it's been so long? Are you excited to see this again? I'll just go ahead and say right now, I went through a very very big kind of swing where at the end of the first season I was like, oh, I'm not sure, because they made so many interesting choices and changes. And I was like a little on the fence on like how excited I was about it. But I definitely, as it got closer to the release of this, I was very excited to get into it again. How about you guys?
I had actually forgotten that this was even like coming out until the idea of covering episode 1 of it came up in our discussion. And it's like, oh, that's season 2's out already. And that was
already.
Well, I kind of, well, I wasn't really expecting it, because it had been so long. And
you forgot it was even a thing that might come out.
Right. And when you mentioned, oh yeah, season 2's out, I'm like, oh, it's been a year already, and it turns out it's been like 2 years, but it feels like it wasn't quite that long ago. But yeah, it was a nice, pleasant surprise, and yeah, I found myself excited to get back to it. I didn't rewatch season 1, and I was a little worried I was going to be a bit lost, but they did do at least something of a recap at the beginning of season 2,
Yeah.
which
Yeah, that was nice.
bring me up to speed. Yeah. So yeah, I was excited once I realized it was a thing.
Yeah, I was also very excited. I've always been a really big fan of Tolkien's work. I like the dwarves more than the elves and the orcs also. But no, I was excited for this one as it got closer too as well. Just it seemed like it was forever in the distance and like kind of fell off the radar, like you're all saying here. And then kind of when I saw the news that it was close to being back up, then I was excited, and particularly excited because it's one of the, I don't know, unlike Brett and maybe, I don't even know about Justin, but Karen and I don't watch a ton of shows together, so this is one we do watch together. So I was just excited to have that back even.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. As far as like season 1, remembering everything that happened, was funny because we found our Amazon, actually, if you go on Amazon for the show, Amazon Prime had like the recap video you were supposed to watch before season 2. And so I was because Karen was like, so I was like, oh, I'll find a recap video here. And it was like a minute and a half, I think, or something, or like 5 things you need to know, maybe it was called.
Yeah.
It was like a minute and a half long, and I was like, okay, well, that's better than nothing. And then we like started the episode, and they were like, previously on the Wheel of Time, and it was like a 3-minute recap with way more detail. It's like, oh, okay, never mind. We didn't have to find that, I guess. But yeah, excited to get back into this one.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, and I think just going back a second, for me, I think it was overshadowed so much by it's since Cody made the Tolkien joke. Uh, Considering Rings of Power also aired on Amazon Prime, I think that really overshadowed the fact that Wheel of Time it predated it and that it was still kind of doing its own thing. Because I really kind of forgot about it after we did our Rings of Power recap.
Mhm.
Because two major fantasy property.
Yeah.
That's a good point. It really is like it's a big 1-2 punch. So you had that was what, the spring when Rings of Power came out? I forget now, but
It's like that was episode 42 and 43. So however
that
that
was
about
fair.
Yeah.
40 weeks ago. So
yeah. Yeah.
wow.
But yeah, that was a concern. I remember when we watched The Rings of Power was like, are they going to do justice to the Wheel of Time? Because even though it's like a mega popular book series and like was the New York Times bestseller over and over and over, like it still doesn't have the name power of the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, not even
So
close.
I was worried after that first season, and then they had Rings of Power debut if they were going to not do this series justice, and we'll talk about if they did or not.
Mhm. All right, well, let's get into a quick plot summary here, and I promise I've gotten better at these summaries. This will this will actually be short. So,
Let's wait till Justin
uh,
talks about a cat.
so episode 1 here we have uh Moraine continues to struggle with being cut off from the power when she gets some information that sets her on a new path. Meanwhile, Egwene and Nynaeve are adjusting to life as novices in the tower. We also have Perrin and Loyal, who are joining the Shienarans in the hunt for the horn. And we finally learn the whereabouts of Mat, get a one quick scene with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then just a short glimpse of Rand, basically just showing that he is okay. We don't know where he is, what he's doing, but he is doing okay at the moment. So and that's just a real quick and dirty summary there. I so the opening scene of this I think is maybe even the best scene of the episode, and it's a really cool one. It's a definitely a fan favorite scene from the books, and it's the Dark Friends social, which is what it's like commonly referred to as in the circles that I navigate. But what's really awesome about this scene is that you get to see right there in front of you just how much the Dark Friends have kind of infiltrated basically every single part of this world. It's very clear. There's obvious. We see a woman with a ring who's an Aes Sedai, obviously. We see someone with a cloak that has a Shiennaran logo on it or banner. There's a woman with the finger. There's supposed to be fingernails in the books, but they appear to be just like claw like rings in this, which is probably a better choice, anyways. As like multi-inch long fingernails would not be practical at all. But so we have one who's from the Shanchan, and we even have someone who is from the traveling people, or the Tinkers as they are called. And so it's a really awesome scene to start this off with. It does for me. So one thing I want to point out here was that it does create a bit of a continuity issue, I think, because like Padan Fain is not supposed to be there in the books.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why it creates a bit of an issue is that he's supposed to have the horn like on his possession. And if he has the horn with him, I mean, 100% Ishamael would have been like, you give that to me now. But I mean, it's almost certain that he does not have it. Well, I mean, I guess we'll see what they could, because we know where Ishamael is in the story at the moment. Actually, you guys don't. Never mind. I won't spoil that for you. I have watched. Let's just full disclosure. I have watched all 4 episodes, so I'm going to try and speak without going too far ahead here. But anyways, I just about that scene in general. Just what do you guys think about that scene? Did you like it? What are your thoughts?
I don't know that I picked up all those details you just said. So now I'm like,
I paused. I still framed it and looked around.
interesting. The part that stuck out to me in that scene actually was the stuff with the little girl and the Trollocs. I thought that was the pretty cool little part because I well, she does go in and like pull on somebody's like dress and say mommy. So like her parent clearly is there, but I was fairly convinced he was just gonna feed her to the Trollocs outside. I was like, oh, this is good. This is gonna get dark right away, but that went a different direction than I was expecting, that's for sure. But it was a pretty cool scene overall though.
Yeah, I think it was interesting that they had the they kind of with the Trolloc there, they're definitely like kind of working this angle of the bad guys not necessarily being bad in their own eyes. Which seems pretty interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know how far they're going to go with that. If they're really going to make it a like a moral struggle kind of thing where maybe the bad guys aren't necessarily bad, or exactly how they're going to go with that. But it definitely is what was interesting that they they basically made the Trollocs to look like it's just like a pet. So
yeah, that was an odd scene just because I don't know. I do feel like they maybe lost a little bit of their like horror that they had to them, compared to other people and races and creatures. Like when you start to see them that way, it's a little bit different in your eyes.
They take their time to, well, just not do the mustache twirling, Snidely Whiplash kind of, murder the little girl thing, and they're actually patient with her. They try to calm her fears. They show her that monsters aren't always what they seem, and that maybe the people that are truly monstrous don't look like you'd expect. And in a weird sort of way, it humanizes the Trollocs too, which that was, I think, really cool, because it's so easy to just do the Tolkien route and say that, oh, I mean, you've got these things that look hideous, they're evil, they're violent, with the orcs, and here you've got things that look like they should be the same, and maybe just maybe there's more to them, and I really like that.
I was just thinking too, again, you've been through the books more times than I have, but my impression is always like the Dark Friends are like just kind of like the whipping boys of the Forsaken, and this seemed like a more bureaucratic approach to how they were presented to us in this episode.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. That they, we have a Shamael here who is from the his perspective, he basically the first season like believed that he was the Dark One. Or at least in the books, he believes that he is. That's not just a ruse he's putting on. Like he actually believes that he is the Dark One. And here he's just like first in a circle of allies, kind of almost. He's definitely not. I mean, not that we see the whole meeting, but he's definitely not like lording it over them. So that is an interesting point to see if that continues going forward, or how they handle that. To see, but it was so interesting. So like, if you go and watch back that scene again, there is some speculation as to who else is in that room. For example, we only get one other person speaking in the room. It's a woman, and we don't necessarily see who is the one speaking, but my wife actually caught up on this, and that it sounds, the voice definitely, and I agreed with her, the voice sounds like it's Siuan Sanche, the Amyrlin Seat, which would not be book accurate.
Wow.
But maybe they could do something with that, like interesting. I don't know.
That would be interesting.
If you listen back to it again, it definitely sounds like her voice, which is definitely interesting. We also have, there's a person there sitting around the table wearing white, like military style gloves, who is almost certainly one of the White Cloaks. No big surprise there, as they're very zealotous and kind of crazy of them already. And then there's a person wearing like loose hand wraps, similar to the clothes that the Aiel wear. So it and those are kind of just speculations, like I say, but it does just really reinforce that like everywhere in the world there are these people who are on the dark side, so to say.
Yeah.
Um, and a point that we brought up before I started recording here is that it looks like they kind of just ditched the opening credits for this season, which is an interesting choice. I'm definitely curious as to why that decision was made, because I thought that the season one credits intro scene was actually very well done. It really fits the theming of the show really well. It was cool visually, and the song I thought was good also. So I I don't know why they would have decided to go with just the quick logo reveal intro that they are currently using. Um, it's like something we've kind of brushed up on this like a few times in the past, but like with streaming, I I don't know if they have like time limits. I can't imagine that they would.
I
Like,
can't imagine.
like
Yeah.
why would is there a reason to cut out like a minute of a title sequence because of time? I don't think there would be. So I don't know why you would just chop that out. But
I mean, case in point, we're doing a Stranger Things watch through with the kids we've been doing for quite a while, and we are on the last episode of season 4, which is, as you recall, is 2 hours and 26 minutes long.
I do recall.
The final episode, people.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
true. So they certainly don't have time limits.
I don't know. And I
but,
also remember harping and like at the end of season 1, like the big thing we said we wanted over and over in the intro was a map, because and that's one of my issues, honestly, from this first episode is they like name drop again like crazy in this. We can talk about the pacing and stuff later, but like they're naming places in the world very frequently in this first episode. And like this is where I was like watching my wife to be like, do you follow what they're saying right now? Or is this all just mishmash to you, you know?
yeah, because they've never, I don't, to my knowledge, they've never in the show really given a sense of what direction things are.
What if
in
they had
this
a
world.
different world map for the show? That'd be crazy.
Oh, jeez.
Never even thought of that possibility. Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, they do actually they have a map on the Amazon page for the
Oh.
show, but it's extra. You have to go search for it.
That's
It's,
right.
You know, it's not presented to you.
Okay.
And it is accurate, book accurate to my knowledge. But
Okay.
yeah.
So what you're saying is this needed to be streamed exclusively through the Nintendo Switch, so you could use the little handheld part of it to look at the map while the show is on the screen, and you could cross-reference
Yes.
what you're looking at.
That is a useful thing. Just a real quick point. Like when you're watching on Amazon, being able to have that like the X-ray thing
Yeah.
up that like gives you like cast members and little bits of info. That's actually really handy sometimes. I kind of like
Yeah.
that. But so I guess my next point here that I want to bring up, we get several new kind of meaningful characters like pretty quick in this episode. So just to list them off here quick, we have Varen and Adelius, who are Aes Sedai. We have Tomas, who is Varen's warder. We get Bail Doman, who is a shipmaster and a trader. We have Shiriam Sedai, who is the master of or mistress of novices. And we get Elias, who we learn more about later. And we also get Ingtar, who is one of the Shinarans, who in the second book of the series is a pretty fairly sized role. We'll see how much screen time he gets here, but name wise, he's a pretty big name. So we definitely are getting a bunch of new faces presented to us right away. Was there? I guess like I'll let you guys, if you have any points, any of those that you want to just throw out at me before going anything else.
Is the Adelaus, is that a character in the book? I didn't remember that character.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And there is so one point I'll just bring it up right now. So just real quick, but just for an example of things that they've been doing, I think well in this season so far is that Adelies has a sister named Van Deen, who they just chopped right out of this season. They're just like, you're out of here, and replaced her with Varen. So it's a I think it's a good example of ways that they are figuring out how to pare down the character list and the
Right.
story list without really removing like crucial parts of the story. Um, but yeah, so Van Dien is supposed to be Adelise's sister, like actual sister, not Aes Sedai sister. They're blood sisters, and they're both Aes Sedai. And apparently now Varen is Adelise's sister in this version. But uh also just one note I wrote down here. My wife says that Elias looks like he just walked off the set of Twilight. And after she said that, I couldn't stop seeing that.
Ouch.
Yeah.
There's one
Ouch.
character in that series. If you know the series, you probably say, yeah, that looks just like him. But yeah, I think it's cool. We're getting a lot of new and they feel like they're working them in well. I mean, for me personally, I mean, Justin would probably be the best one to ask on this. Are you feeling like lost in these characters at all? Are they giving you enough information so you feel like you understand what's going on?
I feel like I'm getting a sense of them as people, which I was a little worried about because it's a sizable cast.
Yeah.
I mean, even from season one alone, but then adding on characters in season two, I was a little worried it was going to be kind of overwhelming. But so far, I do think they're handling it well. Not every character is getting the same amount of time to really flourish, at least as of season one. I mean, episode one, excuse me. But I do think that they're doing a good job with the time that they have to work with. So they're handling it better than in some shows we have recently watched or are watching. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I probably I would agree with that. But again, like Cody said, it's a really good that we have the three of us talking about this. So
Yeah.
like me, it's like, oh yeah, I know all these people already. So it's just like they all make sense. But yeah, for somebody who doesn't know these characters, it's good to hear that it's feeling like you're not lost in them.
Mhm.
So the next point I had on my list here was they took the time, and I think from my understanding, one of the reasons why it took so long to get this season out was that they put a lot of extra time into reworking how the power looks visually on screen. So in this first episode, we don't get a lot of it. We get, I'm trying to think, there's a little bit in that last scene with that fight that I'll bring up later. And there's a little bit in the scene where Alana is showing, like, giving a lesson on how to do that water for purification weave, which was pretty cool. But so like I think I would say it's worth the wait. If and just to get to the point here. The note I wrote down here was there were times in the first season where it looked like the power was a translucent sausage wrapping around the characters' bodies. And now it actually it actually looks like threads of something. And I think the biggest point that I think they really nailed on this is we actually get to see weaving for the first time. Like they're taking two different powers and putting them together to make something else, which I think it's going to be a really important thing going forward, because this is what kind of separates and differentiates this version of magic, this system of magic, from other shows and other IPs. Is that, you're not just poof, here's a magic spell out of my hand. You're like taking something here, you're taking something from here, putting them together and making something out of it. So I don't know, do you guys have any additional thoughts on that?
It was
kind of sounds like you maybe didn't notice that the power had been reworked visually.
It had been a while. But
yeah, that's fair. That's a fair point.
I liked the more thematic explanation of it during the instruction of that whole water purification thing,
Mhm.
because it did make it felt very robust. And just with that little that one example of taking, drawing from the stone of the tower and drawing from the like just the moisture from the air to combine them, and then pouring the water through it to filter it out. It's like, okay, that is one example, but I can see how you could build upon that or tweak it a little bit to do any number of other things depending on what's available around you. And I enjoyed that a lot because a well-rounded magic system and a well-explained magic system can really elevate a fantasy series. And I think that this is well on its way towards just being a very interesting and versatile way of altering the world. It's really neat so far to me.
Yeah, I don't recall the visuals being bad in the first season for that part. As a matter of fact, I remember like isn't there the first part when they're in the village still and Maureen's like casting the spells and throwing shit around, like I thought looked really cool. So I'd have to really go
Yeah.
back and do like a side by side comparison, I think.
It's definitely situational. Like I agree that first episode of the first season with Moraine and that big battle looked awesome. I really liked that. There were points like I say, it was kind of like specific, like specific. There were definitely points where I think especially with when we see the power with Logain, and another point later on with Moraine where the power actually looks like a solid object. Like it looks like it has mass, which was off-putting for me a little bit.
Yeah, it's not the delicate art of putting things together.
Mm-hmm.
It's more
Yeah.
like it's not quite Dragon Ball Z levels of rah, and then
Yeah.
flying out and hitting somebody. But I see where you're
Yeah.
coming from. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, I think that the time that they spent on that, it was worth it for my eyes, anyways. So one thing that they brought up here was the fact that that Nynaeve is like blocked. That came up pretty early. It they they kind of played it off a little bit as if maybe she was just being stubborn, but they do kind of explain it later in that she just can't figure out how to do it. Which is kind of it's a cool concept from the books where they haven't explained it really here yet, but essentially is when it happens when a channeler like doesn't receive proper training from the tower, and like it's like a bit of a coping mechanism. They like force themselves to like not use it because they're like scared of this power that they have, and then they get to a point where they like can't do it now. They can't use it because they've like internally taught themselves to like block it out more or less. But um so another point I had here was that it looks like they're kind of like expanding Perrin's abilities with the visions that he gets in that one scene. So like if you recall, he's with the Shienarans and they're tracking Thane, and we suddenly Perrin has visions of like what happened in this area.
I do have a note about that, yeah, because I caught my eye too, and I was wondering if that was, canon in terms of the source material, or if it was just something he added because he could speak, it sort of like empathize with animals prior to this, and then all of a sudden he's like literally seeing the past. I'm like, oh, okay, is his power just progressing, or what? And that I did have a kind of a big question mark by that.
Mm-hmm. I think that would be definitely be fair. I think they I'm guessing they kind of made it a bit like you're supposed to wonder like what the hell is going on. It's not supposed to be like straightforward understanding. But they do I will say that they in the next couple episodes they do kind of explain kind of what's going on there. But it was like it was kind of shocking that just all of a sudden he's like seeing visions of things. It's cool. I thought it was pretty cool, but it was a bit it just kind of came out left field.
Yeah, where's this coming from? Right.
Yeah. guess while I'm on that, I think it's also really interesting, as I mentioned before, the fact that they kind of chopped out the character of Van Dien and like shoved Varen into that spot. They've done that also here in with another character who was named Huron. So Huron was the sniffer, as they're called. And this is something they're probably not going to explain it because I don't see a need for them to explain it. But a sniffer is someone who literally can smell evil. So, and
a little on the nose, but
to be more specific, they can smell where evil has taken place. So like they are used in like law enforcement in that they can say, oh, someone was robbed or murdered here, track the person to where they are, and they literally can smell the trail of where this person went. That's why they're calling this a sniffer. So just for anyone listening who's like, why the hell are they using, why is that a term? That's why. But so they have replaced Huron with Elias, and it honestly makes a lot of sense. Again, we don't get a lot in this first episode to explain why. And again, since I've seen 4 episodes, I can kind of like let anybody who's listening to this or you guys just it does make a lot of sense going forward. And just for me, the point that I'm trying to get to here is just another really good example of where they are they're condensing characters and story to make this all work in a way that's actually going to fit into like 7 or 8 seasons.
Well, this choice is going to be interesting, and if I'm remembering the books correctly, because in my head, Elias is always like this kind of random character who would pop in and out of Perrin's life from time to time. But he was never, for the most part, in my head, he's not somebody who's like traveling along physically with them with the group. So it's interesting if he has like additional roles in the TV show. Does that mean he's going to be more of like a standing next to them type character than he was in the books? But I mean,
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, he definitely he's not a long time like constant companion in the book.
Yeah.
So we'll see if it's the same here, if he kind of goes off in his own way here at some point. But yeah, so it also is a good way to explain why he wasn't in the first season, because timeline wise he should have been. He should have met Perrin before Perrin and Egwene met the Tinkers and got like sucked into that group there. But yeah, anyways, I think what they've done there, it's been a pretty good decision so far. And I think the last thing that I have here on like plot wise, so the very last the very last scene of this episode is a really cool scene here where we finally get to see the powers of the Myrddraal, the Fades, as they've made this kind of simplified them in the show here. We actually get to see the power in action, which I think is really cool. In the books, they're said to be able to just like slip into a shadow and disappear, like essentially go into one shadow and like come out a different shadow. And like we didn't see that at all in the first season. And so to get this scene here where Moiraine and Lan are fighting them, and they're basically just like popping out of one side here and like going somewhere else. I really enjoyed that. Just curious what you guys had to think about that.
Yeah, they certainly seemed more formidable in this than a lot of the times we saw them in the first season, from what I remember anyway. And yeah, seeing a protracted battle with them and with more than one, and seeing like how they actually operate as a group was interesting, and it did make them seem like a very dangerous, very legitimate threat. And yeah, they're neat as antagonists, just visually, because I mean they yeah Harry Potter kind of did the sort of like smooth face with the nasty teeth, for a villain. But I mean, they still look they still look intimidating. And yeah, I look forward to seeing them more, as the series goes on, because compared them to like the Nazgul from Lord of the Rings, where they would show up and they were usually more like searching for something. And in the handful of times that they actually fought the heroes, it was very in very specific terms where the heroes had an advantage. Here, they had the high ground, and it was only through some luck and a lot of perseverance that everyone didn't just end up dead. So yeah, I like that sequence.
Yeah, fun fight scene. Kind of nice way to end that first. I mean, it's not the pilot, but the debut episode of season 2 to maybe, if you're somebody who's new, just checking out the show. I don't know. Maybe there's people that started with season 2, episode 1, just because they saw it on Amazon and plopped it on there. But
yeah,
but it was a fun fight scene. Like, it's pretty tried and true to like kind of end the episode on the battle scene of a lot of shows. But it was pretty fun. I particularly enjoyed the scene part where Maureen like is really good at anticipating them and like kind of like knew where one was going to be and like kind of stabbed her little knife at it as it like popped up and was like, oh damn.
Yeah, it is a cool point that they're definitely showing that she is more capable than just her channeling ability, which is cool to see.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. Good visuals on the other Aes Sedai arrive at the end as well.
Yeah, yeah, that was a cool like just an adrenaline kind of pumping moment there.
Yeah.
I think it's funny, and I think it's probably the better decision. But to be honest, the Fates are actually nerfed pretty heavily in this show.
Oh.
They're definitely, like, in the books, they're said to essentially like one Fade can take on like half a dozen fighters and probably still win. So to see like Lan like fighting 2 at the same time, and like, I mean, he doesn't really come out on top, but is holding his own is basically impossible. But from the book perspective, but honestly, I think it's probably the better way to go. If you have these things being more or less unstoppable, I don't know if that would be like just too much to have. You would be able to use them very often, I guess, at the very least.
It'd be like
So
Mr. X in Resident Evil 2, or Nemesis in Resident Evil 3 or something. It shows up, you just run. Yeah.
They do definitely they fall into that villain trope where when they have a kill shot available, they suddenly move painfully slow. It's like, I will stab you incredibly slowly. Give someone else time to come up and sneak and hit me in the back.
They call that the Mitch McConnell. That might be two on the news on that one. Okay. Apologies.
They look.
I mean, if everyone's gonna sniff out evil, I mean.
Yeah.
So I guess that covers most of the plot from this. I guess what I'd like to go to next is, do you guys have a favorite moment or favorite scene from this first episode?
I personally, I think I have to go back to the sequences where we see how the magic works, because it made the world. I mean, the world already has felt pretty well fleshed out, and pretty very well realized, even if we don't always know where everything is. But this it further developed an integral part to how this world works. And yeah, it wasn't the most action packed, and sure, it wasn't. I mean, it had a few flashy bits, but it wasn't something that you might bill as like, oh, this is going to sell our show. But that sort of stuff really appeals to me, because it shows that that's the writers, both of the screenplay and of the source material, care enough about what they're writing to make it believable, and to focus on these smaller moments to lend more believability to the world they're making. That it's a small thing, but it really stood out to me.
I guess maybe I'll throw just a combination of stuff we talked about and a new one, which we didn't really mention, the Bail Doman scene with Maureen and he
Right.
negotiating over the Coindiar and the poem, which she kind of bamboozled him on that deal. But the stuff with her, I think around that time in Lan, I thought was interesting because it felt like the show is giving us maybe a little more personality for Lan than the books often did in my head.
Yeah.
Where like in this episode he was angry and then he was forgiving and then he was sad and then he was like he has a range of emotions in this one where
Does
he's
go, even this is one episode he does go.
yeah,
go
kind
quite
of
a
more
bit.
stone faced
Yeah.
in the book, I feel like. But I thought they did a nice job in this episode where I was like, yeah, she's being a bitch. And then like
Yeah.
by the end when he sat down with the other two Aes Sedai and they were like, let us explain it to you this way. And I was like, oh Lan, you're in the wrong. You need to go apologize right now. So it kind of made sense to me both ways, but I thought their interactions were pretty good in this episode.
Mhm. No, good choice. I probably would go with probably the fight with the Fades. I think it was probably my favorite. It just was really cool, just visually to see that all as the way it played out. And just another point I had here was that I'm really impressed with the performance of Kate Fleetwood in this episode. Like the episode, the series as a whole, but like the episode in particular, Kate Fleetwood was the one who plays Leandrin, and like she's so good at being this ambiguous character right now. It's a great job. Like like is she a bitch? Is he just misunderstood? And yeah, like knowing the path that character is probably gonna go. I mean, it's not guaranteed because they have made character path changes. So I can't be 100% certain what's going to happen with her, but knowing what should probably happen, I think the fact the way they've portrayed her is really interesting. I suspect it is without giving really anything away. They're trying to get you to a point where you don't know what you feel about this character. Like, do you like her? Do you hate her? Like, what exactly is going on? And then we'll see where she goes. But yeah, that was just I just wrote that down here because I have been really impressed with that performance so far. And I think just in general, just the whole feel of this episode felt really good to me. I couldn't put like one finger on it. I don't know if there's better writing. I think the pacing is definitely better from the first season. And we get a lot of like really meaningful character interactions, which in the first season we had some, but I think a lot of it was just like rushed and you didn't get time for people to like talk to each other. But I just in general, this episode feels really good to me. I don't know how about you guys feel about that.
I'll save my response for that. Are we doing a rating for the first episode, or
Yeah,
like
yeah.
how much we're looking forward to like the rest of it?
Yeah,
or...
I think like the way we did kind of Ahsoka, I think we'll do something similar.
Yeah, I'll save my response to what you just said for when I give my rating.
Fair enough.
I definitely think the pacing seemed way better in this one than the last season because all I remember from that one is just like jump, 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 and the fact that additionally we had no concept of geography in the show. I was like, well, did they just travel 10,000 miles or 10 miles? I don't really know.
Yes.
Yeah. And then they'd go to the next set of characters and then around and around. So it feels like the pacing was way better so far in this one. And I'm kind of picking up here that the audience reviews, I don't know, not maybe specifically mentioning the word pacing, but there's some reason that they have been giving this season a higher score already than last season. And this maybe gets into a little bit of what you got coming up here. But like one thing I thought about this first episode was it was nice that they really let each of the scenes breathe a little bit. We got to see a personality of the characters, the situation they were in. But they were able to do that because in many ways, like they didn't have a lot happen in this first episode. So my concern is if you make it so that the pacing is this speed, which is better for us and maybe easier to follow and have more emotions tied to what's going on, how far can they get in the plot at that same pace? Because this is still only going to be what, like 8 episodes, 9 episodes again,
I think it's 8. Yes.
presumably.
Okay.
So 8 episodes. So that's an eighth of your story has gone by in that first episode. So I don't know. I mean, I liked the feel of this one more than I did those rushed episodes in season 1, but I just don't know if they'll get to do what they need to do here in the second season. But then again, maybe it doesn't matter because, this is a different entity than the book. So maybe they are deleting things, maybe they add things, maybe they, season 2 doesn't necessarily have to be book 2, I guess, but
Yeah, you could have a different endpoint in mind.
yeah.
Yeah. There's again, since I've seen all 4 episodes that are currently available, there are some plot points here that without saying anything beyond that, it like there's one thing that we in the books we don't see it till like book 9, 8 or
Whoa.
9, and it's happening right now.
Whoa.
So they're definitely bringing some things much earlier into the story
Interesting.
than we would probably be prepared for. And like this is one thing that I like it took me a long time to come to terms with it, but just the fact that, as you said, it's the Wheel Time show, it's not the Wheel Time books, and it's not going to be the same. It's, I hope, going to be hit all the big points and the big character arcs that really make the book special. But like I've gone into this season understanding that it's not going to be the same, and to just let it happen and experience it. And as long as they're not bringing people back from the dead as they did in the finale of the first season, I'm gonna be I think I'm gonna be able to just absorb it and be happy with it as long as it's well produced, and yeah, like I said, at the pacing they're going, are they gonna have to chop out like even more of the story to keep that pacing? Probably, but I think it's like a good point to make is there was a lot of story in book 2 where like there was things happening, but you could chop out a lot of that and get from point A to point Z and be okay with it. So yeah, I kind of feel like that's what they're doing here is they're just fast forwarding a lot of this and letting it breathe more. And it for me, it seems to be doing a lot better.
We did talk about it, I think, during the first season too. Now that I'm thinking about this more, it's coming back to me. But the books always had a tendency to, I don't know if they did it. I don't know if Robert Jordan did it on purpose or not, but he would do like a chapter on Rand, a chapter on Matt, a chapter on Perrin, a chapter on Egwene, and then sometimes he'd do like 10 or 12 characters before you wrapped back around to like that person repeating.
Yeah.
And like
the whole book.
Yeah. So if you chopped, I mean, you could probably chop quite a few chapters out if you just condensed that somewhat too. So maybe they'll squeeze it all in. They'll have to cut stuff like, I don't know, from where you're at in episode 4, like, but we mentioned maybe like the Forsaken. Like, I can't see the show's going to have all of the Forsaken from the books. Like, there's just no way. There's no way.
Yeah.
Because how many are there in the books? 12, 13? Like
13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not going to be room for that. But some of those are probably easy to cut, though.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, we missed. There was 2 of them. In the first book we had 3. I think there was 3 Forsaken that showed up in the first book, and 2 of them died immediately. And so like they don't play a big part anyways. Like chopping them out, we didn't see them in the first season.
Yeah,
it probably wasn't necessary. So I'd like, yeah, I think they definitely are going to trim down that list quite a bit.
They could probably just have like a few for the dragon to fight and maybe like 1 or 2 for like the ladies to fight, because they'll need some antagonists as well. But
yeah, just split them up a little bit. Let's see here. So yeah, I made the point about Vandy not being in the show. So we do get a scene with Matt in this episode, which is nice because he basically disappeared off the face of the planet, literally, in the first season.
Yeah.
And so I actually I they have not released anything to my knowledge on what actually happened with that situation. But I did find
The
this here
actor or
that
the character you're referring to?
the actor.
Okay.
So just to refresh anybody's memory who doesn't know. So Barney Harris was the actor who played Matt in the first season. And the last two episodes, he basically was not in them at all. And now we have an actor named Donald Finn playing Matt. And I found this snippet that I just copied here straight verbatim. It's they said COVID-19 pandemic resulted in production on season 1 stopping, and when the cast and crew returned to set, Harris was not among them. Basically, just didn't show up for work. I don't know, like they don't give any other detail, like if he like basically like literally just did not show up, or if there was like some sort of they talked about it and then they said, you know what, okay, well we'll just release you or whatever. But what they actually did was they took old footage of him walking into Shadar Logoth, and they basically reworked it to look like he was walking into Tarvalon. And that was like the one scene that we see of him like right at the end of the season 1.
Weird.
That's what that was. It was like old footage that they found and repurposed. And it's just it's a crazy situation that just like this actor just was gone and we have nothing on it as to what happened. But circling back around the long way here, I so far I really like Donald Finn as Matt. We again we only have the one scene with him here, and you don't get a lot from him because he is, we see him as just kind of like
he's a dog.
He's like bro, he's just in this cell. Leandrin has him in this cell. He's just kind of like broken down and sad. But I think I feel very confident that this actor is going to feel a lot more like Matt than what we got from Harris in the first season. So I'm looking really, looking forward to that quite a bit. In episodes 2, 3, and 4, I think he's really enjoyable. So we'll see how that goes. A couple of characters that we have here, like major characters we're getting this season. We get Celine, we get Elaine, and later on we're going to get Avienda here at some point. We're all big players in the books, so that's something exciting he got coming up. And yeah, they're also going forward here. There is a very unexpected death. And I won't spoil anything for anyone, but I was heartbroken.
Oh no.
One of my favorite characters in the books, who honestly is he is dispensable. Like he can be offed, but I think it was used. It was purposely done to cause to create this emotion, this situation, and it works really well.
Is it one of Loyal's books?
It's sad. It's really sad.
Oh no. Okay.
One of Loyal's book, yeah.
We'll have to look forward to that.
So yeah, let's look forward to that.
I still think Loyal should be bigger, but that's just me.
Yeah, I don't know how they would. I mean, they've done other stuff, like obviously other shows. We have regular sized humans who are portraying like colossally tall people, which is what Loyal is supposed to be, like as tall as a Trolloc, like 10 feet tall, and he's like 7 feet tall in the show, which
he just looks like the Jolly Green Giant. I'm sorry, but he does.
A little bit. So yeah, that covers all my notes here. Do you guys have anything that you you had
I,
thoughts on?
I had a couple
before
interesting
we-
little things here. Just I was going back through the first season. So the first two episodes were directed by one person, and then the third and fourth by somebody, the fifth and sixth by somebody. Excuse me, the seventh and eighth by somebody. And they've started season 2 with 9 and 10 directed by somebody new, and then 11 and 12 are directed by another person, somebody new. So they've had 6 directors, 2 episodes in a row each, which
That's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
I know they will frequently switch it up on TV shows, but I also know, directors have a little bit of leeway as far as how they decide to shoot things, and has caused problems in like the MCU, for example. So,
Right.
it's just interesting that that's the style they're going with here again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not involved enough. I'm not involved at all in the world of producing shows.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what benefit that would have for your show. It seems like it would be like a potential for a bunch of negatives, and I can't see a whole lot of positives coming from that. So it is an interesting choice that they've gone that way.
Unless it's a cost-cutting measure, to direct an entire show, maybe they had to pay one director more than chopping it up into 2-episode blocks for multiple different directors. I don't know. That's the only thing that seems plausible to me.
I was just wondering too, maybe because it is like a sprawling fantasy, maybe like, director A is literally getting all their shots done while director B is using like the people that A is done with to like start on the next episode so they could get them done quicker. I don't know though.
That's an interesting thought.
It's
I
fun,
mean,
yeah.
I could see that working that way, where
It
it's
just
a bit
seems
of
like a
time-taking thing.
logistical nightmare on every level, but
Yeah.
kudos to them for getting it done. The other question I have for you guys is, do you think all of what is this world called? Does it have an actual title of the world or not?
Not really. It's like the Westlands.
Okay.
Is like the generic term that I am familiar with. I've also seen a lot of people call it Randland.
Randland?
Not a very roll off the tongue kind of thing, but
Randland. Well, anyway, I was going to ask if
amusement park in the deep south.
yeah. Do you think the whole world has Amazon Prime or just certain sections in the big cities? I asked that because, if I needed to get a lantern for Beltane, how would I make sure that I also have mine there in time? So,
and it doesn't come from some shoddy third world country.
it does too, yeah. It comes from like the Aiel Waste, and they're like, oh, this craftsmanship's terrible.
Doesn't even float in the river properly.
They don't even know what water is. Spoiler. That was a deep cut joke.
That was good.
No, that's about all I have though. I'm looking forward to watching the rest of these now that we've done the podcast on one though.
Mhm.
So I went and I looked just this morning because I wanted to have the most recent up to date ratings, and this is something we touched on earlier, was that like season 2 so far, and this rating is on obviously the 4 episodes that are available currently. But season 2 ratings with 794 entries is 4.1 out of 5, which is a fair amount better. The season 1 ratings at the end, currently with 31,000 ratings, is 3.5 out of 5. So it's basically exactly the same as where it was when it finished 2 years ago. Hasn't really deviated from that. But I think it's obviously it's a very good direction to go into to raise your overall rating by that much. And it just interesting. I hate this so much, but so you have 70% of the ratings are 5-star ratings. 17% of the ratings are 1-star ratings, which leaves 13% of the ratings falling in the middle. Oof. Which cannot be like, I can't, like, nothing should ever be rated that way. It is so baffling how these ratings, people just review bombing, and other people like trying to counteract the review bombing.
Yeah.
It like everything, the ratings are like, how much do you even trust that 4.1 out of 5? I don't know.
Yeah.
but it's so ridiculous. I know the first season ratings are very similar. Like it's either 5 or 1. There's like nothing in the middle. It's so ridiculous. But yeah, I also like I just general thoughts. I think season 2 is looking way better than season 1. I'm really excited by that. I hope it continues on that path. I did go back because I didn't know. I assumed you guys probably wouldn't do it, so I went back and listened. And so our ratings from the first season.
Oh,
Cody, you gave it a 7.5. Justin, you
okay.
gave it a 7.0, and I gave it a 7.0. So we definitely had some it's a better than average, but kind of mixed ratings on that one. I guess are we sounds like we're ready to get into our rating of this episode here. And as we did in with the Ahsoka episode, I think it makes sense to, since we're just doing a first episode of the season here, let's give it a rating of like how excited we are for the remainder of the season.
Sure. Since I'm talking right now, I guess I'll go first.
Sucker.
So when I was going into this, initially, even with the recap, there were times I was worried I was going to be a little overwhelmed because I didn't go back, I didn't revisit season 1. I was worried I was going to be a little lost at times, but the pieces started falling together. And the more I watched it, it went from a kind of a cautious optimism to, the best way I can describe it is watching the more I watched of this episode, the more it felt like I was essentially curled up in a comfortable chair with a nice blanket and a good book. It's been a long time since anything I've sat down and watched has given me that feeling. And if I wasn't so pressed for time with like other things that I had to do, like I wanted to make sure I kept up with Ahsoka. I wanted to make sure I was doing other stuff around the house and whatnot. I would have, probably launched straight into episode 2 right afterwards. And yeah, this felt like it just felt right somehow, despite not having any real familiarity with the source material aside from the last season. Yeah, this just felt good. And I am really quite excited to see where it goes from here. So in terms of my level of anticipation, 9 out of 10.
Very nice.
Nice.
Cody.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a series that can be done the justice of whatever somebody's willing to put into it. Amazon has big bucks. They have a good studio, it seems like, set up at this point to do these types of things. I was kind of leery after the first season. I would have definitely watched the whole series, however long it would have been and whatever form or quality it would have ended up in. But this one definitely came swinging out of the gate here in episode 1. Like I said, just the pacing alone was really good. Just that concept of like breathing. I listen to a lot of wrestling podcasts, and they even like when you watch a live show on like Wednesday night, like some of the podcasts review it and they're like, they should let that segment breathe a little bit more, or knock out a commercial here, played up the emotion here a little bit more. And like I started to pay more attention to that stuff, I feel like, with things I've been watching beyond that. And that definitely is the case here. We're just, there were scenes in here that they could have shortened by 10 seconds, 20 seconds here for whatever reason if they wanted to, but they didn't. And I felt like all the scenes were fleshed out a little bit more because of that. It seemed like they jumped around a lot less in this intro one. Now, that being said, we here in episode 1 don't really have like a story with Rand yet. We don't really have a story with Matt yet. So like, presumably we are going to get more jumping as this continues on, but we'll see. But I'm super excited about it. I feel like it's in good hands. The fact that it came out for season 2 and reviews seem to be better and it seems to look better, I think bodes well for the series. And that alone makes me more excited to see what else is going to come out of this, because it kind of felt like the sophomore season was going to be an indicator of where this was going to go. So, because I don't know if Amazon's actually going to try to adapt every book in this series or not. I mean, those actors are going to be pretty old by the time that would be done, but
yeah,
but yeah, I'm super excited to see where this season is going to go. So I'll do like an 8.5 for what's ahead here in season 2.
All right, very nice. I kind of gave some of my my general thoughts earlier, and that I just it just feels really good.
So good.
The the pacing is as I said, I think it's much better. There were scenes in that first season that were like the entire scene was like 20 seconds long. You know,
Yeah.
it's like here's a here's a location, do few lines of dialogue, boom, somewhere else. And it's like,
Mhm.
what the heck? What's going on
Yeah.
here? Like, you can't, it just doesn't, it didn't feel good. Like it was like from the perspective of understanding the story and wanting to get the story in, like as much of the story in, like I was like, okay, yeah, I wanted to see that, but I wanted to see more of it. And we didn't. There's so many times where we just didn't get to see a lot of stuff, and the dialogue really suffered because of that. Like it's just, discussions weren't fleshed out. People didn't have like any meaningful interactions. It
Yeah.
was just like a dialogue to move up a plot, and that's all it was. And a lot of these scenes just feel so much better. And it's interesting. It would be really interesting to see, like, to be in a room somewhere and like, did they have these discussions, and like, was it kind of planned out that way from the start, where the first season they just needed to like get as much out as they could, or did
I
they
was just
like,
wondering that.
did they go back and say, all right, we need to do something different here because we're getting a lot of flack on some of this from the first season, and did they learn from it? And I hope they did, and that they now have the right path, and may it just continues to get better and better, I hope. And this definitely is something that I've really enjoyed watching with my wife. She's into it, I think, just as much as I am at this point. Um and she knows how big a fan I am, so she's interested from her own perspective. Like, she wants to be a part of it because I'm a part of it. And so after the episodes are done, we're having discussions about stuff. Like, we're talking about plot points, we're talking about how is this going to go in the future. Like, we don't do that with other shows. We just watch a show and we're like, okay, that was a fun episode, next episode. you know and so it I like all these things coming together to me. I really enjoy what I'm getting so far from this. um I think performances are really great. I'm really enjoying the characters. The characters are done really well. There's a couple points I could make about like characters not feeling like what they're supposed to, per the books. But the characters that I'm supposed to like, I'm really liking. And I think my excitement level I has gone up considerably. I'm gonna say 9.1, just so I can say that I was the highest, most excited one on the episode tonight. But really, no, I'm very excited to see where this is going. I definitely like this last episode. We were sitting there like in Amazon because they'd like said on the screen like new episode on Thursday, and so we were sitting there on Thursday night like waiting for the episode to drop. And like the very second that it appeared on the screen, we were in watching it. So that's where
Nice.
we're at with this show. So yeah, that's where we are. Any final thoughts from you gentlemen?
No, I'm glad that you guys reminded me that this was a thing, because I think I would have been very sad to learn later on that this has gone through, and I hadn't even realized it until after the fact. Because it just feels like good, well put together fantasy, and I love that sort of thing. So yeah, that's watch it. That's pretty much all I got to say on the matter, I think.
Yeah, not too
All right.
much more I would add as well. Just looking forward to seeing where this goes. And of course, I have to ask the question, do we know when we're getting season 2 of Rings of Power now? Is that on the schedule? But
I haven't seen anything myself.
all right,
but
fair enough. No, but looking forward to this.
nice. All right. Well, that's all we have for tonight then. If you've enjoyed this episode, we will be covering the full season at a later point after it has all been released and we get a chance to see it all for ourselves. So come back and join us for that. And in the meantime, go check out other episodes. And if you like what you're hearing, share us with somebody you know. Maybe share us with somebody you don't know.
Yeah.
Just share us with somebody. and
You're
and
gonna
we
do it
will
on the
thank you
street.
for it later. Yeah, just hold up a sign and walk down the street with it and give us some free advertisement. But yeah, go check us out. We are all over the place. We have the website, was it Fon Podcast? I actually don't remember off the top of my head now. Fonpodcast.com.
You got it.
Is that it? Yeah, I knew it. And we're on pretty much every social media you can think of and every podcast source you can find. So yeah, this has been Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing for tonight. And I did not prepare a theme for singing tonight. So
Oh, that's okay.
that's not like it really matters. I don't think at this point. But we are going to leave here tonight to sing our theme song. And here we go. Friends occasionally.
Friends
Not
occasionally.
disagreeing.
We were not disagreeing. Well,
Nice and short. There we go.
There it is.
All right.
Have a
Thanks.
good night,
See you guys
everyone.
later.
Bye.